I'm just going to be open long enough to object to all this harassment.
I've been practicing all day.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, according to my notes and calculations, it's now 10:30, so we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is going to be identity. And if we are brainstorming our human connection, one of the ways that we connect is through our identities. Who do we think we are? Is a sort of working question. One of the things that occurred to me that seemed to make this particular conversation relevant is that it seems that from the moment that we're born, we're asking this question, who am I? You know, if you think about when you're born and all of this new information is coming into you, it's said by those who study those kind of things that when babies are first born, they have a difficult time seeing or making sense of anything that's going through their little eyeballs. They gather a lot of what the world is through their mouth, putting things in their mouth. And one of the first things they put in their mouth is their hand. And little by little, they try other extremities. And all of that seems to be connected to what is this thing that's my body? You know, what is this thing that's sort of hanging out there, trying to explore it, trying to figure out who am I? Now, since the baby doesn't speak any particular language at that point that is at least known to us adults, any formal language, probably they don't put it in those kind of words, or it may not even be clear to them that that's what they're asking. But all of the indications are they are trying to answer that question, and relative to what is that, which is one of the things they ask often when they're young, is what's that? You know, and they're testing things all the time, tasting things, listening to things, looking at things, and as they are better able to focus on things, they stare at things that bring them interest. If something is moving, they pay attention to it. And as they're able to control things, they do it over and over and over again because it seems to satisfy something in the brain that I'm able to hit that thing and it goes somewhere. It moves in response to something that I do. So they're already recognizing the world from the perspective of the I. How am I feeling? Who is close to me? And it makes sense when you're looking at the world from the center of your universe, that you have to kind of answer that age-old and very deep question, who am I? Many philosophers have said, first know thyself. So this who am I comes to our identity, because the identity is something that we create to some degree, but also we look to others to give us. We look for all kinds of ways to reflect on who am I. And one of those ways is, how do others see me? What is my reputation? I can see myself from the inside out, but how do others see me? And sometimes we push back on how they see us. And sometimes we accept how they see us, often without question. If somebody says, you're ugly, we internalize that. If people say, you're beautiful, we internalize that. If someone says, oh, you're too fat, we internalize that. And we take it on as, that's who I am. That's what I am. You know, I can't tell you the number of women, even in the last 2 or 3 years, that are either actually crying or on the verge of tears because someone said their butt was too big. And you, why is that a thing, you know? But it was important to them because for them, that was kind of like their identity, you know, that they had taken on because someone else had just made a comment. Often it turns out just as teasing, but they internalized it. So today I would like to explore identity, what it means to you. How do you develop your identity? And to what extent the feelings or observations of others have something to do with your identity. If possible, I know this kind of question is big, and it can often mean a flood of information and feelings, anecdotes, things that happen to you. A flood of things can come into mind, and it's almost can be hard to get them all out at the same time. But if possible, I like to kind of stay within certain kind of realms just to make the conversation followable. It doesn't mean that one thing is more important than the other. It's just that I found that if we can kind of stay on a particular view of it, it will allow us to share and contrast what others feel about the same subject. So I'm kind of at odds with even saying this because I like to have a free and open conversation, but at the same time, if it just goes willy-nilly everywhere, it's hard to benefit sometimes, or harder anyway, to benefit from the conversation because the conversation is simply hard to follow. That said, I would like to begin with asking you the big question: how do you want to be identified? In other words, when other people see you, what kind of identity would you like to think that you are projecting and they are receiving? I'll leave it there. Anybody, everybody.
Well, I think the Boy Scout oath is a good place to start.
Say that again, Charles.
Boy Scout oath is a good place to start. I heard
Be
that
prepared.
earlier.
Be prepared.
Well, no, trustworthy, loyal, friendly, helpful, courteous, kind. Huh? That's held up for me over time. I still hope to be thought of in those ways.
Okay, very good, very good.
Especially kind.
Yeah.
Kindness has really grown in my perception of who I want to be through the years. And I think it continues to grow.
Excellent.
I'm with Chuck on kindness. When my current son-in-law came to me to ask, kind of in a formality, obviously he didn't need to ask for permission to propose to my daughter. I said, I only want one thing I ask of you, is that you be kind to her. And I don't care how much money you make. I don't care where you guys live. I don't care but be kind to her. And he promised that he would. And so far he's done a great job of that. And I would hope people would look at me, and I haven't always been kind to people I should have been kind to. Sometimes it's difficult, and our Jesuit priest in the parish that I attend preaches that all the time. We have to be kind to the people we dislike, the people that have been unkind to us. Those are hard lessons to learn, but I don't think you can do much better than to be seen as a kind person. Honesty is, of course, important too, and trustworthiness, but kindness is probably the most important.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I think that's kind is a good word. However, there's so much more to it. The respect for all, the acceptance of all, a listener that accepts differences, whether it's opinion, nationality, or whatever it is. And the big part of overhanging is be honest with it. Honesty, I think, is such an important trait. In my own experience, having married one, that was his highest priority. Honesty, caring for others. And I like the word kindness, but there's so many parts to it. You can be kind and still hate somebody. I don't know if we really truly hate. I don't know. I'm trying to think, why does that person do that or think that way? What has happened to that?
So you're saying, if I'm understanding you, Lee, you're saying that you would like people to identify you as a person with those qualities.
I would
that be
try.
correct?
I don't know that they would identify me, but that is what my goal in life is to do.
Mhm.
And helpful. I mean, that's showing it.
So being that person,
Right.
right? Okay, excellent.
I would think, this is Todd.
Mhm.
I think in a baseline, really, we, in general, people want to be identified by the things that they think and the way that they act. If you get to that level, then good or bad, at least, I mean, it's almost like a level of communication of the person, right? And so good things or bad, sometimes you need to know when you're not living maybe to what your highest sense of self is. And if that is communicated, if people take you by your thoughts and your actions, then you would also know that. And that's sometimes more important than if they're thinking that you're, the kind of person that you want to be. I guess that's a good thing to have.
I think I
go
lost
ahead.
you. I think I lost you. Could you reiterate?
No, it's just that like people who you know, that you feel like you're most yourself with. They're people that can identify you in your good or bad ways. And you can kind of live up to your better self then, because they'll get who you are, or at least how you're appearing. And so, you know, a lot of times it's better to have that kind of communication with people in general, if you can. And you know, Lee talking about honesty, that's the best form there, is like a real sense of the person. You just would hope that you could communicate that way, that you could, you know, identify yourself to the world by what you think and how you act. And then you can live probably better to your higher self of sorts, I guess.
So are you saying then that that's, I'm trying to meld that into our question of how you want to be identified, how you want others to see you, can you phrase what you were saying?
Sure,
From that
absolutely.
perspective?
It's real basic in that, you know, by my thoughts, what I share with people, and by my actions, what they see me do. This is how I want to be identified, not by how I look, or, you know, who they see me hang around with, or what my job is, or, you know, I mean, and it only because there's a lot of preconceptions in the world. And it seems like that gets to be more and more. People need to put you in a box someplace. I just say, you know, if you take people on the face of what they say and what they do, it's a much more honest form of identity. And I would hope that for myself, that would be possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Todd. Anyone else? What is it that you would want people to see in you, or how would you want people to identify you? How do you project? What is it that you hope you're projecting that others will see, and their image of you is that?
Good morning, folks. This is Jace.
Hey, Jace.
Well, I would think that, I hope that people will see me as a good relative, that I care for my people, I care for all people, and I care for all things in the universe, the world, the animals, the birds, the mountains, sacred places. So being a part of a relative in the world, and hopefully being a good relative, that's what I strive to be.
What does that mean to you when you say good relative? What does that mean?
Taking care of people, being kind, like Charles and others have said, being respectful of one another, as Leah said, and trying to be understanding of other people and their situation. Just trying to be a good relative and take care of your relative. You know, when they're in need of something, you try to provide that if you can, whether that be listening, or if you can feed them, or if you can offer prayers for them, then you pray for their well-being. Being a good relative.
Thank you. Charles, you were going to say something else?
Just that Jace said what I was about to add, hearing what Todd said about the others' perceptions of him. A while back, I got to my son Ryan a plaque. This might not be the exact quote, but it's close. Be the person your dog thinks you are. I think,
That's
and
good.
he displays it. I think that's pretty deep, actually. you know.
Yeah, it is. It's very deep.
I think it's pretty deep. I think
Yeah.
you can't do better than that. Be the person your dog thinks you are, which is to say, echoing Jace, sensitive to all of creation and open possibility.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lynn, were you trying to say something? I saw your screen light up, but your mic wasn't on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Yeah.
Oh, hi everybody.
Hey.
Identity. Wow. I never had any for such a long time. Growing up in Watertown. I don't think people realize that when you're raised a minority, you don't have a Black and Indian, and you don't have an identity yet. So my goal was to learn as much about who I am, because nobody told me. I was raised in foster homes. I didn't have an identity, but everybody else around me had an identity. So my first part was I would joke around, use a lot of humor to get away from the bigotry and racism I was raised in the 70s. And it was always identity. Wow. So I went and created my own identity. So I decided I'm going to be tall, dark, and handsome, number one. I got that one accomplished. I wake up every day and say, Leonard, you good looking son of a gun, you better never die. But the point is what you do with your identity once you find it out. And Pete Ketchum Sr., who adopted me, who also won the Making of the King Holiday Award, he told me, Lynn, you just got to be humble. That's your identity. That's who you are. And everything else will come from that point up. So that's all I had to say about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's important to say. Thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you very much. Anyone else on their, how do you have, how do you create your identity? Who are you? What do you think your identity is? What is the identity that you are projecting or hope you're projecting to others? How do you want others to see you? Anyone else? Well, while you're thinking about that, because I think that is a central question, how you want others to see you. Another question would be, how do you get people to see that? Because just like people don't always hear what you say, they sometimes perceive things differently than you think you're projecting. A good one is, since we're talking about kindness, some people feel kindness, they interpret kindness as weakness. So it can be tricky trying to project an identity of kindness when you have some people who feel, or what they hear is that you're weak, and almost inviting someone to abuse you because you're kind. It's not to say that's what you want. It's not to say that's necessarily what you are projecting, but it is to say, at least in my observation, that many people do mistake kindness for weakness. So how is it that you, not just kindness, there are many different things that we try to project. How can we, or how do you get people to receive what you're sending? How do you test even that they are getting your identity as you project it?
Well, I think Todd would tell you from having worked in the newsroom with me that my regular process on that was to be kind most of the time to people and open and reasonable, and then occasionally to just throw a complete raging tirade at my desk.
Just to
show people that
calibrate.
before I went back to being kind and reasonable.
Just to account for wind drift.
But you know, you talk about that, how you want people to see you. And I've spent most of my 70 years trying to have people see me in a certain way, because as some of you may know, I was a dropout early on. I was a kid considered a failure early on, dropped out of school back in Chamberlain, and was the kid that was seen as the bad kid, the failed Wooster. All my brothers and sisters were valedictorians and salutatorians. And so for a long time, I was seen as that kind of a person. And I wanted to be in school. I just couldn't be for a number of reasons that psychologically I think would be understood today and weren't then. I was seen as a truant then. So I spent a good share of my life when I went off to college and learned journalism and began to practice it with some degree of success here in South Dakota, trying to change that image of me. And then the image went, amazingly enough, my gosh, look at, he did all that he dropped out of school in the 7th grade. He must be a genius. Well, no, I'm not a genius. So somehow I went from this loser to this amazing genius. And what I've tried with some degree of success and failure is to get people to see me for who I am, this flawed person that tries every day to be less explosive and volatile in situations that I have shown that, and to not be pushed around, but to not push others around either, and to try and reach some conciliatory level of interaction with people throughout my life. And that's still what I work on and what I would hope I would be seen as.
I can confirm Kevin's assessment.
Yeah.
But he brings up, no, but wait, he brings up something that's really, I mean, because it isn't one thing, right? So, you know, how we want to be perceived by others is usually achieved in the form of consistency. If I walk the talk and I am striving to be better, you will see that. If I'm trying to be kind and I try, you know, and I do that on a regular basis, you know, it should be communicated better, but I'm not always going to be there. And with Kevin, I mean, really what achieves it, and this is for all of us, is that you won't always achieve what you want to do. You won't always be your best self, but if you're honest with yourself, and then also importantly, honest with others about that, it goes the same distance. Because people will give you that as a human if you say, listen, I'm sorry, you know, I was wrong here. That's as important often as actually just walking that step the way you want it, because then they will see that it isn't, maybe part of your character right now, but you don't want it to always be.
As my wife tells me, you do apologies really well. A lot of practice.
That's a very good compliment, man, because doing apologies is not one of the easier things to do, but doing it well, that's good, you know. And it's a good skill to acquire, much better than asking permission. Speaking of that kindness, weakness thing, one of the things that I've found that works with that is, I think one of those presidents said, walk softly and carry a big stick, you know, and that big stick doesn't have to be an actual stick or violence. Sometimes it's just a look, you know, sometimes it is that cold silence. They're like looking at them like, are you out of your mind? You know, that look that says, I see where that's coming from, but it's not a thing, really. You know, even an attempt at bullying, being bullied, somebody is attempting to bully you, you know, that look of like, that's not really working, you know. I found that there's a lot of stuff that is said by saying nothing, and sometimes it's a smile. It's like this, you know, you really are out of your mind, aren't you? You know, that, and at the same time, help them out. Just say, you know, let me help you with that, you know, or sometimes asking a question. Did you really mean it like that? The way you came off sounding, or the way that you're acting, it sounds like this, you know. Is that really the person that you are? You know, is that what you're telling me? You know, I find that those kinds of skills, those kind of interpersonal skills can be useful. And sometimes the kindness shows strength, and the extending a kindness when the person is trying to, let's say, take advantage of the kindness. I think there was this one guy who said, you know, if they strike you on one cheek, show the other cheek. You know, if they rob your coat, give them your hat. You know, I used to just flat out reject that as just, that's absurd. But then I thought, wait. The guy's got something there. That's an interesting strategy. Interesting strategy, because it diffuses often the ability, the person, they have nothing else now, you know. But of course, I'm not saying that's a blanket statement. I'm just saying that that sometimes works too. And it's always case by case.
So
Any
basically
other-
you talk, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So basically you're talking about killing with kindness. And I tell people I can be your best dream or your worst nightmare. It's your choice. So,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not trying to be evil or mean or anything like that. It's just like, okay, you don't know me. You think you know
Yeah.
me, but I can be your best dream or your worst nightmare. You make the decision and we'll discuss it from there. So I think as long as you treat people with respect and come at them with not really come at them, but discuss with them and listen to what they have to say first, obviously, and go, okay, I heard you. You know, I still have yet, and I want to sit down with Governor Nome and have her explain CRT to me. You know, I brought this state 2 state holidays. And so are you telling me that my history in South Dakota cannot be taught in the school systems? You know, and I'm like, okay, I'm just not understanding the lack of empathy towards American history. That's all I feel about that. Carry on.
Yeah, interesting. Anyone else? How do you project your identity to others in a way that they understand it as you're trying to project it? Crystal, did you have
Yeah.
something you want to say?
Yeah, I have some. So when I was thinking about this, like, what is identity? How do I want to be seen by others? You know, I think our identities change over time. And our identity isn't necessarily, well, it is like, who is my identity of how people see me? So I'm a brown skin. I have long hair. I'm a Native American. You could probably tell by looking at my features. And, you know, even like some people identify me, like if I'm out where a group of people don't know me, they might identify me as maybe, you know, one of those, oh, she's an Indian, blah, 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 kind of negative just because of what I look like. If I'm in a group of people where I'm, you know, with others that maybe are similar, I'm with my own people, then it's my identity again is different. So I guess it's like, you know, identities change over time of who I am, whether I'm nice, mean, whatever, however I look in the, you know, like when people look at me, there's different perceptions. You would assume your identity of who I am. I look at all of you on this who are showing your pictures, your videos, and I don't really know all of you, so I just kind of I know Betty, you know, and I know you, but I think I maybe came in contact with Kevin Wooster. We might have did a story once in somewhere. But anyway, so I kind of know, like, I identify you from what I see, from your face, from your, how you talk, how you position yourself. At first glance, whenever we meet somebody, we kind of have that perception, you know, that, you know, they say the first time you meet somebody really matters because they look at us and they try to identify us, something that's going to help them to remember us. So, you know, when we think about identity, it changes all the time. Like the gentleman said, like when he was younger, he did, you know, Kevin said he didn't graduate from high school. They identified him as a bum, dropout, whatever. And all of a sudden he becomes a genius, you know. Sometimes these things are, you know, how we identify ourselves in our own minds and how people see us is also two different things. I think like if we can be who we are authentically, like who we are, what do they say? Who are you when no one is looking? Who are you when, you know, you don't have to be in a public eye? You know, do you go home and treat community nice as can be and then go home and then yell at your family and be grouchy and mean and ugly to them? You know, I've seen that happen a lot. And so with, you know, with people that I know that who I know their identity, but that's, you know, that's one way to describe it. But if I got to know them further, if people got to know me further on just that real earthly level that, you know, that, yeah, we all have our troubles or whatever, but knowing ourselves, you know, that's what the important thing is. And also my cultural identity is, you know, I'm Native. The work that I do identifies me. I've done a lot of work, like say, one time I was really advocating for mothers against drunk driving. And then I became known as the mad lady in my community. You know, I'd be at a convenience store and somebody ahead of me buying beer, and then they look at me and they try to hide it because they know me, you know, like I would be like, I don't care if you drink, just don't drink and drive. You drink all you want. And so now I've been working since pandemic with masking. I've been telling people, mask up, everybody wear your mask. So when they see me, some people call me the mask lady, you know, so they identify me by the work that I do. And that's okay, because sometimes we don't need them to identify us. You know, it doesn't matter how they identify me. My thing is how I identify myself, I think is what I'm trying to say, is how I live with myself, how, you know, because sometimes you could talk to people, you could be nice to people till you're blue in the face. And sometimes they still might not like you. They'll be like, you know, so that's on them, that's their stuff. So I think we have to, when we talk about identity, for me, it's talking about, you know, who I am, who I know who I am. If you don't know that, then you can either get to know me or, you know, that's it. That's okay. You know, I'm just going on my merry way doing what I do, you know, and when I'm gone from this earth and people remember me, you know, hopefully that they would remember good things and that, you know, I would have no regrets. And that's for me is like my identity of who I am. And then it also goes with relationships. Like, so my mother recently passed away. So now I'm identifying myself as an orphan without a mother. So I'm going through that process. I talked about grief. I'm a hospice volunteer. I know all about death, but yet when it hits us, it's a different thing. It changes. It's starting to change my identity in, you know, in some ways, because before I was a caregiver for my mother, and now all of a sudden she's not there anymore to care for. So I'm like, who am I now? You know, somebody asked me, I was on another Zoom the other night and somebody says, well, what are your interests? What do you like to do? And I was just like, well, you know, all my time and energy went into taking care of my mother. Everything I did, she did, whatever she wanted to do, that's what we did, 100%. And so it's like, I don't really know. I'm trying to figure that out now, because now she's not here. I don't have to, she's not 100, I don't have to put all my energy and, helping her. I have to change myself and say, okay, how is that going to change my identity? And I feel like it's slowly changing it. And even not having that one person in your life, it changes your identity too, because things are going to happen. And at the funeral, when the relatives came up to me and he just said, you got some good things coming for you. He said, you just wait, I didn't know what he really meant by that, but I believed it. I took his words for, yeah, I probably do. I don't know what that is right now, but I'll find out, and that's my identity. How I figure, when you ask these questions, what is identity? Is it important? If yes, why is it your identity important? Are there any downsides, downsides to it? So I would say, yeah, that's my identity. And some people might have heard something when I was 18 years old. Oh, she did that. And in our community, people still bring it up, like, oh, you remember, I saw you drunk, you did this, you did that, so it's like, okay, but that's not who I am anymore. And if you want to keep on believing that, you go right ahead, because it's not, it doesn't change who I am, but at least I'm aware. So yeah, that's kind of what things I had in my mind about we have to make our own perceptions of each other.
But thank you very much. Thank you very much, Crystal. That was insightful. And I'm hoping others have been formulating thoughts as well. And one of the questions that Crystal brought up that's in our challenge to answer is, why is identity important? Why is that important? It always seems to me that humans value identity, and they go to quite some lengths to establish an identity, even one that they hope will keep going after they're dead. When what could you benefit from that really once you're dead? But people put a lot of energy into creating a post-mortem identity. So why is identity so important?
You know what? I think it has to do with your goals in life, maybe. I was thinking, like even serial killers, like they want to be identified as the biggest serial killer ever. They want to be remembered for the most horrible crimes, Mother Teresa, I don't know. Some of those ones that are really, I feel like are true, are like, they don't have to, I mean, it just comes natural sometimes, to some people.
What comes natural, Crystal?
Like being your identity, I guess, in wanting to do good or be remembered for good things. Because that's the hardest thing, is working your butt off, just be kind to people, and yet maybe it's not going to follow through if it's not sincere. You know what I mean? If it's not sincere, and people can see that. I think I was listening to the gentleman say, I was kind to everyone, then I went back to my desk and had a rage, and then had then have to apologize. And that, you're right, you said the apology is good, because it creates a connection. Like, I am human. I try to be kind, but yeah, I do blow up sometimes because everything around us, And I think now it's even scarier with this war going on, in the Ukraine and Russia. It's like, how is that going to change? Our identities will change again, because what do we do now? How would this affect us? So yeah, I think that, just that part of it is, it's important about identity.
Yes. Anyone else?
The other why, or an answer to why, I think it changes with age. You have a different identity, like when you're growing up. Do you want to be the tough guy or the sexy woman or whatever? and things change in life. So why, what, I think it's to be accepted. No one wants to be not part of somebody, a part of belonging. And I think that's a very strong urge in being a human being. And the other thing is, why is that important? Just for a more peaceful society. And I'm thinking, where do we learn it? Well, many people learn it at home, probably fewer than I would like. But I think it can be taught in schools, because you really see all the time bullying, sneering, name calling, da-da-da-da. And if the teachers, the counselors, the monitors, whatever they are, any adults around, if they don't follow up and teach that by modeling, but also teaching them that in group work. How do you work in group work? What's going to happen? If somebody comes into your group you don't want, don't you sneer in my class. And so there are consequences. You want to do the project all alone? What I'm trying to say is, it is something that is teachable and something that should be modeled, because we all want to belong to something. We want to be known as being accepted, not ostracized.
I think you hit on a very key point there, Lee, in terms of it becomes our membership card. Our identity becomes our membership card. Even if we're different than the other people in a group, they know where we fit. And when I show my membership card, or I show an association card, maybe I'm not a member, but who I am says I could be a member, or I can fit in here some way, even if I'm not, quote, a member. I'm okay. It gives people a way to think about us. If I'm understanding your point, Lee. And I think along with this question, and one that actually underscores everything else we're talking about, is the question of, what is identity? What is it really? Anyone care to take that on? What do you call identity?
Takes me forever to figure out how to get these buttons to show up. I'll just try to be very brief, but I relate so much with Kevin Wooster because of being a dropout. And that was hanging over my head most of my adult life. I dropped out due to pregnancy, and it wasn't an offer to go back to school. It was just, well, she's out of here. And no, I'm married and all that. So anyway, I did that for a long time. And then along the way somewhere, it became apparent that I could choose my identity. If I could figure out what it was, I could work toward that. And I suppose all of those younger years, I put way too much weight and importance on how other people identified me and saw me and thought of me. I gave that up, that it doesn't work for me as a mature woman, and started querying myself. Who are you? Who do you want to be? Who can you be? What can you do? And tried from there going on to concentrate then on those values and behaviors to my own satisfaction. I want to be who I didn't even know I could be. And so I'm still doing that. Like Crystal said, our identity changes. And some of it is just changed to seemingly to me willy-nilly, but that doesn't have to be so willy-nilly. Not that I can control everything nor want to, but kindness, I try to keep that as my foremost value. And I think that sums up what I have on my mind. This has been really wonderful hearing from everyone and getting to know each other better.
Thank you, Betty. Or as you, AKA Fire Tablet.
I'll figure that out by next week.
That's going to be your name from now on whenever I see you.
And I won't do that.
Your new identity.
I'll see what you let me know.
Good. Anyone else care to weigh in on what is identity anyway? Charles?
I have a question for you. For quite a while, you were known as the Vinegar Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Still. In some circles.
Vinegar Man, but I don't hear that so much anymore. So why don't you say something about your evolution, how you've morphed from being the Vinegar Man to how you're better known these days, it seems to me.
Well, actually, it depends on where you are. In some places, they still only know me as the Vinegar Man. Probably in most of the world, that is still the case. In and around South Dakota, because we're local and you can get a, let's say, a more focused view and you see something else, you see that I'm doing other things and that morphs into a different identity. If I go into the food world, the scientific world, or outside of South Dakota's borders, I'm still the Vinegar Man. So I think people can have more than one identity at the same time, sometimes even the same place. It depends on with whom and which circumstance or situation. When I go to the prison, it's probably the most complicated identity that I have in any one place, because it's from inmate to inmate, my identity changes. For one inmate, I'm the guy who will go to his mother's funeral and take a video and then bring it back and sit down with him and watch it, so that he's not alone when he watches the video of his mother's funeral. To another guy, I'm the guy who will go and talk to his family to say that he's not nearly as bad as they think. To another inmate, I'm the person who brings in audio albums that puts it on the channel. When I walk through the prison, sometimes people say, oh, he's the guy that made that video that we see at night. And that's all they know of me. They don't come to my groups. So, and that's just, it just depends which inmate you're talking to. I will have a different identity with each one of them. And I'm all of those things. So I'm not just one of them, I'm all of them. But from each person's whole that they look through to see me, I can look different and I can be different. I can feel different. How I talk to one person is different than how I talk to. Sometimes in one session, like a couple of days ago, when I was at the prison, a few days ago, when I was at the prison and we were talking about, I was with a group talking about fatherhood and how we could get some programs in the prison to help them to be better fathers, because that's what they said that they wanted to do. And I had brought in someone as a guest to talk to them about what kinds of things they could do to be better fathers and what we might start in the prison to help them do that. But in that same conversation where I'm saying, well, let's do this and do that, I turn right around and say, hey, look, you know, if you guys are knuckleheads, I can't do anything for you. You know, I can go out and try to do that, but if the prison thinks you're a knucklehead, they're not going to help you. Yeah, Charles, you're.
So your answer to my original question is that it's the perception of you that's changed.
Yes.
You haven't changed.
Oh, I always change. I'm changing because with every interaction, I learn something, and I learn a different part of me. My identity of myself changes based on who I talk, who I interact with, and many people that I interact with, especially like in a prison, they help me to discover some part of myself that I never even questioned. I never knew it was there. I never knew I could be that guy or was already that guy, but hadn't focused on that part. Does that answer your?
Sure, and it really would be my response to your original question. You really have to have a sense of the self evolving so that your identity changes as you grow through experience. And stasis is the worst thing as far as an identity is concerned. You have to be kinetic forever, I think. I mean, you need something foundational, but you also need to be open to change and possibility. I've quoted Stanley Kunitz's poem before the end of it. He wrote at the age of 90 some, after chronicling his various travails, he said, "I'm not yet done with my changes." I love that. That's the way we have to think and be, I think.
Yes, we can very much be imprisoned by our identity and limit our possibilities and limit who we are and limit our life experiences. One of my pet peeves is cultural identity imprisonment. You know, when a person thinks, well, I can't like that kind of music because I don't look like that. You know, I can't like rap music because I'm not Black. I can't like classical music because I'm not white. You know, it's like, what? You know, what does that even mean? You know, but there are people who they do imprison themselves in their identity or what they think is an identity. Lynn, did you have your hand up to say something?
Yeah, I agree with you on the identity part. My mother calls me a chameleon because I had to, as a survival technique, just to get along with everybody. Of course, I always called myself a flake of pepper and a salt shaker in South Dakota, but it was like, but that taught me a lesson that no matter where I go in America, that I can change right in front of you. I can walk into a room with total strangers and be able to carry on from a crazy conversation to a highly intellectual conversation, but that's mostly for survival. And I think identity is really important for human survival because, like I said in my post, you're only as good as the company you keep. And I've had some pretty crazy company in my life, but I learned from the negative to the positive. And so now I just try to hang in between and just try not, walk on rice paper and not make it wrinkle, so to speak. But yeah, I just want to tell you guys, this is an awesome listening to the show today. And Lawrence, you're doing a great job, Vinegar Man. That's how I met you, Vinegar Man.
Yeah.
All right, carry on.
Good, thank you. Well, we're getting near the end of our discussion today. I hope that in this discussion, you have heard from different people who have expressed some very rather profound ideas. Sometimes we hear them or we, exchange them, and we don't realize till much later how profound they were, what a difference they made, a new perspective, a different way that we can look. Or even if it's just oh, I felt that too. That's an important thing. That is a thing. Having someone else say, I struggle with that. having someone else say, I fixed that problem this way, or I see it that way. I had this struggle too. All of that stuff is important in making our human connection, to realizing that we are much more alike than we could ever be different. It's been wonderful. Anything last before we leave? We only got like 30 seconds, but well, in that case, thank you very much. I hope we'll see you all next week, where we'll have another exciting discussion. As they say, bring it. Bye.